Gina Mizell here, Danny Moran here, following Oregon State's 35-31 loss to Washington State. A game that Oregon State, frankly, collapsed in the second half. Is that fair to say?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, Oregon State was leading 21-0 early on. They led 24-6 at the half, and Washington State rallies all the way back. Played much better on offense, played much better on defense, and the third quarter was really where this game turned. It was a 22-0 lead or advantage for Washington State. Oregon State briefly took the lead after that muffed punt, and then Washington State went right back down and scored. So just again, it's hard to almost wrap your brain around everything, but just what are your first thoughts about this game?
Well, I remember you tweeted out at halftime when it was 24-6. I think that was the best first half they played in the Gary Anderson era, and that's true. I mean, that was they dominated on both sides of the ball. It was pretty stunning to see, particularly I think on defense where they're so thin at cornerback and outside linebacker, excuse me. And so I mean, Gary Anderson acknowledged this week that there are certain packages that they can't go into games with because of how thin they are. And so to have that performance against the air raid, Luke Falk, Gabe Marks, all those talented players was really impressive. And then the third quarter looked more like what we thought it would be, 22-0 in that quarter. And the other thing that stood out to me was just the penalties.
Yeah, lots of mistakes. Yeah.
13 penalties for 110 yards. That's the most for either category in any Gary Anderson game at Oregon State. So, and they were critical ones too. The one I think about the most is the Oregon State had a 4th and 1 and false start, made it 4th and 6. They were out of field goal range. They went to punt, had a fake punt that failed. So that's one of a number of scoring opportunities that they gave up just because of basic miscommunication, just fundamental stuff.
Yeah, one thing to note, of course, is that Ryan Nall did return and had a great game.
Yes.
He had an 89-yard touchdown early on. He finished with 3 touchdowns, 2 rushing, 1 receiving, and really sparked the offense in a lot of ways. Marcus McMaryion played well in the first half. Victor Bolden had a really nice game. Again, they scored 24 points in the first half, which is more than they've scored in some games this season. So, but it just, again, it really turned, and it was punt after punt after punt after punt in the second half. And the only time that they were able to score was when Washington State muffed a punt, and then Ryan Nall was able to punch it in.
At the 2-yard line, basically.
Yeah, exactly.
So it was
exactly.
Pretty easy for them.
Right, exactly. So, well, moving on, of course, after this game, Oregon State now has 2 straight on the road at Stanford, who I believe is still playing Arizona at this moment, or that game may have just ended. Then they go to UCLA and then finish up with 2 home games against Arizona and, of course, the Civil War in the regular season finale. So Gary Anderson was pretty upfront about saying, hey, a couple of these games have not gone our way, but said that he didn't have any concern, I guess, about the team staying together and still trying to fight through it. But it's going to be interesting to see how they respond in this type of situation where they were out to a big lead and let it go, because that really hasn't happened in the last couple of years.
You thought it would have happened against Cal, but again, they ended up coming back to win.
Right.
So that's what makes it so
but this was even a bigger lead. This was, in the first half, like we're thinking that this was going to be perhaps I don't know if we thought a dominating win, but we thought that this would perhaps be a comfortable win, and it just it didn't happen.
And this was a bigger all-around collapse too. And in that game, the pass defense kept going. This time it was just kind of really all around, and just failure after failure at a number of levels. They still could have won the game.
Yeah.
But reminded me kind of a little bit about Colorado last year. A lot of teams going through rebuilds. It's hard to find ways to win, particularly against an offense. I mean, this is a Washington State team too that, don't forget, is undefeated in the Pac-12. They, will have a chance to play probably for the Pac-12 title against Washington at the end of the year.
And casual observers, this was another Pac-12 after dark example.
Yeah.
So we're keeping the tradition alive, I guess, here in Corvallis tonight. So with that, again, final score: Oregon State loses to Washington State 35-31. He's Danny Moran. I am Gina Mizell. Keep it on OregonLive.com and keep reading the Oregonian, and we will catch you next time.